Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
coming to the Westside Drive Neighborhood Information Meeting. My name is Paul Velocich. I'm the town engineer, and we have our consultants with us tonight, and we're going to walk you through where we're at with the project. After that, you'll be able to come up and see how the plans look around your property, whatever questions you have. Hopefully we can help you get some answers for you. Next slide. So I'm Paul Velocich, the town engineer. We have seated over here Steve Cronin. He's the Public Works Director. We also have Jay Perkins. He'll be involved in the project. He's the Highway Superintendent. In the audience, Ms. Deb Lazelle. She is a funding partner, stormwater coordinator for New Hampshire DES on a clean water SRF for this project. And what has been happening in the background over the last couple months too is our engineers were able to secure some funding on the drinking water side of it. Originally, we didn't have that funding. However, we got to keep within our same limits of what we already had, but some of the borrowing and principal forgiveness aspects of that are a little bit more attractive. You might remember Jen Mates from the Exeter Engineering Department from a few years ago that started this project. She is now working for New Hampshire DES on the drinking water side, so she'll be our funding partner on that side of it also. With us with the Underwood Engineers is the technical leader, Dan Rochelle. And the new guy, sorry, I had to write it down, Tyler Stanley. And the senior project manager who's been in control of this project here from day one, Cole Melindy. And Cole, turn it on over to you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's quite a turnout. We're excited. This has been a long time coming. We'll walk you through a little bit of what we'll talk about tonight. Dan is going to get into the nuts and bolts. He'll get in the nuts and bolts. I'll roll through some of the stuff that we've talked about in some of our previous public information meetings. Give a little history and background. Talk about the project components and goals, the proposed improvements, next steps, questions, so sort of general questions here. But really the impetus for this meeting is we wanted to bring the plans. Sometimes plans, I remember I do a boot camp at Underwood for the new engineers coming in, just how to look at a set of plans. So they're kind of confusing. So we've got a couple of set of plans here. We'll be in small groups. Probably Dan will take one, I'll take the other. We can find your house if you want to. At the end of this, there'll be an opportunity to go through the actual plans and see, we'll help interpret what the little lines on the plans mean, basically. So that was really why we wanted to do this meeting. So this is a project area. This Kingston Road, you're well familiar with it. It's basically the loop road there, and the entrance off of Kingston Road is the scope of the project. And as I mentioned before, this is a long time coming. This started back over a decade ago with the town's CSO long-term control plan. So we're looking at clean water getting into the system that then goes to the treatment plant that has to be treated. So that was the start of it. And this neighborhood was identified as one of the neighborhoods with high, we call it II, infiltration and inflow. It's basically the clean water that gets to the sewer, that goes to the treatment plant that doesn't need to be treated like wastewater. So it was part of that to get those clean water sources. And what we found in this neighborhood at that time was there's a lot of sump pumps. So that was the original vision for the project, was sump pumps. There isn't a great place for people to, for residents to put their sump pumps other than their neighbor's yard, which isn't ideal. So that was the start of it. Also, as part of the CSO long-term control plan update, it was identified as that. And back in 2022, we did a basis of design report. So we had a number of meetings, and then we town warrant for construction. But what really became evident to us as we went through this process, we started the project saying, okay, we know we have a sump pump problem. But then through the public meetings and information sessions that we had, it became clear that there were other drainage problems and other issues with the infrastructure in the neighborhood that we ought to address as part of a comprehensive dig the hole once, as we call it. So we had a public meeting in 2020, 2021, and then the most recent one was in May, where we talked about a little bit more of the nitty-gritty because of some of the stormwater issues. Narrowing up the roads a little bit, the less impervious area helps with a drainage, frankly. There's less, the stormwater can get into the ground. So that was something that came out of the last one that we had. So this was one of the slides. I just wanted to have this was actually from one of the public meetings. We were marking up the plans. People were giving us input. I think this was in the COVID fog when we were doing this. But it really became evident to us that drainage was an important thing that needed to be addressed with this project. So the main components for this project are the sump pump laterals, which requires an extension of the drainage system. Dan's going to get into it a little bit more detail so the residents have a place to put the sump pumps. And that also really helps at your treatment plant. So when you have all that clean water going to the treatment plant, it disrupts the treatment process, having all that cold, clean water going there. The bugs are less efficient, and then it creates increased discharge from your treatment plant to the Squamscott River that's unnecessary. So we want to keep the drain in the drain and the wastewater in the wastewater, and that's part of what we're trying to do, the stormwater and roadway infrastructure improvements, and also water main. There's asbestos cement water main out there. The town has been having those corrosive soils. So there's been an increasing maintenance issue with those, basically where the laterals connect to the main with the corrosive soils. It deteriorates the water main. So that's dig the hole once. Corrosive. Yeah, so, there was some fill, based on the borings, there's, some peat and some other things, some organics in there that create an acidic environment that deteriorates the pipes. But we'll be putting in all new pipes. So I'll turn it over with Dan. He's going to get the nuts and bolts, and then once again, we'll look at the plans. But he's going to walk you through a little bit of the process that we use for design and some of the things that we look at as part of our design process. Here's the map there. So this is sort of like an overview, but it's hard to see much there. There's much more detail in the plans, but we wanted to have that available too. So with that, Dan Rochette, he's the brains behind this operation.
All right, thank you, Cole. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I think the mic's picking up. I've been coming off a cold, so hopefully my lungs can keep up with me. So I'll start out talking a little bit about the drain services that we're gonna provide for the sump pump connections. So this area highlighted in yellow are the homes that we've identified to provide drain services to for the sump pumps. The idea is that all these homes are kind of on the interior of the neighborhood, or they're in an area where the backyards don't necessarily, they don't grade off down slope. Those houses, the sump pumps can discharge kind of out the backyard and either to the river or to the lowland on the backside. So the houses in yellow don't have that opportunity. So we'd be providing drain services to those properties. This is kind of an idea of what a drain service would look like. Got to run two hands. So just to give you an idea, this here would be like the drain main in the street, and then this would be a drain pipe that extends to your property line, buried below ground. Usually we leave them about 3 feet deep or so, and this would be a connection point here that we'd be providing for the owners to connect their sump pumps into the drain line. Just kind of on a plan view or overhead view, this is kind of what it would look like here. When you look at the plan, the dotted lines are the drain lines, and then we have the drain services here, and this clean out represents this area here. And if you have any questions, we can look at it afterwards on the drawings. Just overall drainage system improvements. I'm sure most of you are aware there's a pretty limited drain system out there. There's a couple areas where there's some main lines, some main collectors that run through the street and to the miscellaneous outfalls. But most of these areas just have a couple catch basins that discharge out to the exterior. So what we're looking at doing is putting in a pretty extensive collection system. One, to be able to provide those drain services to all those interior properties. And two is to just help improve the overall drainage conditions, providing low spots to collect with catch basins to collect the drain water and whatnot. We'll be making improvements to some of the outfalls. This one here is a picture of the one that I believe is between houses 15 and 17. This one here is, I believe, the outfall that's near house 29, between 29 and 31. We kind of call this one the cannon. You can see it's kind of eroded over time. I think some pieces of pipe have broken off and it's just kind of sticking out into the bank. So the idea is to pull all this old pipe out and replace it with new pipe, stabilize the outlets and prevent future erosion. And similar here, this small 6-inch pipe will be replaced with a bigger, I think it's a 15-inch pipe, and regrading all this so it's a more defined ditch line, and maybe improve some grading back there as well. Just kind of what that looks like on the plans. You can see this is the existing pipe here, smaller and shallow, and this is the new pipe here, which is a bigger diameter. It's deeper in the ground, so we can extend that drainage system out more to collect a bigger area. And then this here is the just kind of what that looks like overhead. This here is the house number 29, for instance, and then this is the drain line, essentially being put back in its existing spot, and then outletting here towards the river. Again, the idea is we're just trying to replace failing pipes, improve overall hydraulics, and just get that water away from the road. This drainage, these outfall improvements do include work outside the right-of-way on private property. So we've been working to contact some of those property owners, review the work, and discuss and start to discuss the rights to entry and things like that. So I believe some people we've talked to already, some people we haven't. So we're still in that process. This project does include evaluating some alternatives for stormwater treatment, and one technology or one type of treatment that we're looking into is called rapid biofiltration. That would be installed here, kind of in the corner of an intersection. This is a sample picture of what might that look like. We did want to note that this picture does show kind of a stone border. We wouldn't intend to include any stone. We just want to kind of just have it all grass so that it's easier for maintenance. Easier for maintenance, mowing lawns, and then just kind of how that works is all the storm water kind of just flows in on the surface, and then it filters through some filter media here, and then it ends up in an under drain, a perforated style pipe, and then it outlets through the catch basin to the system. A second type of treatment that we're looking at is an infiltration trench. This is an area here where we're thinking we might be able to implement this. Again, it's kind of in a corner area where we can efficiently collect a lot of water. And what these are, essentially, it's a ditch alongside the edge of the roadway. Similar idea, the water goes in through the top of the ditch or through a nearby structure that we might pipe the water into the stone, and then the water filters through the stone. And then the idea for this one is just to get the water into the ground. We have pretty limited opportunities in the neighborhood to be able to use infiltration type systems because, as you know, there's a lot of high groundwater, and we need certain separations from the bottom of the trench to the top of groundwater in order for this type of treatment to work. But we have found a couple places where we should be able to use it. And just as I noted, this is kind of a cross section here showing the roadway, the edge of the road. And this would just look like just a shallow ditch along the edge of the road. Again, we would propose to essentially just finish it all in grass so that it's easily maintainable. Shallow slopes, so you can mow it with a standard mower. You don't have to use anything special or a weed whacker. So the question was if the sump pump, correct me if I'm wrong, the sump pump system that we'd be installing, is it gravity fed or is it pressurized? So the idea is that obviously your sump pump has a certain amount of pressure to it. Once the water reaches a connection point, it's all gravity. It's all gravity from there. There's no pumps or anything that gets the water out. From a roadway improvement standpoint, we just have a couple existing pictures here. As you know, a lot of the pavement's in pretty poor condition. I think one corner of the neighborhood, I think the water just continuously runs out of it all the time. And we do hope to address that as well. I think we're looking at putting in some under drain in that top section of the neighborhood to try to get that water out of the ground before it pops up through the roadway. Just as generally summarize some of the roadway improvements, the proposed road width is 28 feet, which is a reduction from what's there now. And this helps us greatly reduce the amount of runoff that the storms create. And we'll be doing, as in reconstructing the roads, we'll be obviously regrading everything to make sure all the storm water goes where it needs to go, keeping it where it needs to stay, trying to keep it in the road and not into the properties and going down the driveways. We're planning on installing curbing to help us control some of that water, and it also helps with tying into your yards and the existing grades. And then we also have the sidewalk at the entrance. These are the road width. We just wanted to note that the road width in particular and the sidewalk stuff, those have been previously discussed quite a bit at some of the earlier meetings. So in case people aren't familiar, I know you've seen this graphic a lot tonight already, but this is essentially the sidewalk area. This is where the sidewalk would be, is going to be proposed. And then I think there'll end up being a sidewalk here as well. So sidewalk on both sides on the entrance road, if I'm not mistaken. And then, now I'm questioning my drawing, but I think I have a sidewalk on this side here, and then coming up around the corner, which I think that was one of the areas that people had a lot of concern about, that initial corner with vehicles coming around. We have kind of a blow up of that red box inset here, just kind of depicting what the changes look like with the pavement width. So this orange, these kind of shaded orange lines here is the extent of the existing pavement. And then this is the new roadway in here. So everything that's in dark green on this is existing pavement that would be being converted over to grass or turf. That's also, when you look at the color drawing there, it's a similar scheme. All the dark green on that is all essentially old pavement that would be becoming grass.
The new paved road would be a bit lower than the existing paved road.
It will be, I don't want to say it's going to be lower because it's not lower everywhere, but it will be graded appropriately so that all the water moves. And we can, if there's a concern around your home or an area, we can. Oh yes.
Driveway break the street down, so water just runs into people's driveways.
Oh yeah. So I've spent probably 2 weeks worth of time going through the grading and the cross sections and looking at it all. And I think when I was looking at all the spot shots on our survey, all these walkways through here, and I think all the driveways were within a couple inches of each other. So it is a very flat area. So in order to get water to move, we kind of have to create low points, but we do have to create some high points. So I don't want to say the road's been dropped everywhere, but we've done what we need. We'll do what we need to do to get the water to move where it should go. So existing pavement limits. Excuse me. Again, just a reduced arrow showing the reduced pavement width. As part of the work, because we are narrowing the roadway, obviously the edge of the roadway would be further away from your existing driveways and walkways. So part of the work will be to extend the driveways to the new edge of pavement and the walkways. Yes. Yeah, that's the town. I say yes. So the town's project is essentially within the right of way, or if we need to go a little further in order to get the grading to work appropriately. Typically what happens is once there's a contractor selected, the contractor's all on site. Some of the homeowners will start asking the contractor, hey, when you guys are paving, when you guys are out here paving, is there any way I can get my driveway done? And that portion becomes between you and the contractor. It would be separate from the towns. Yeah, go ahead. So like this light line here? Yeah. Yeah, so that would be...
Excuse me a second. This is being videotaped right now, and while we could hear what you're saying, the people at home won't be able to, or when the video does. We have some microphones around, so if anybody has questions like that, just so that for more completeness of the video, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I can also try to remember to repeat the questions. So the question was, there's like a light gray line kind of in the dark green here, these light gray lines. So those are the existing, it kind of looks like curbing. I think most of it's either kind of flush or in pretty deteriorated shape. So that would be the edge of the existing traveled roadway. And then typically there's a kind of a small paved area behind that was probably an old sidewalk. And that's where the existing pavement ends. Expanded. So some of these expanded turf areas give us a little more room to work with when we want to try to implement some of these stormwater treatment alternatives as well. Roadway grading. We've talked a little bit about it with some of the questions. This is just a quick sample here of what you'd see in the drawings. So the dotted line would be the existing surface, and then the solid line is our proposed grading right now. So you can see the existing surface is pretty flat, and the solid line has a little up and down to it. So that's what we've been looking at to help grade the road and define some of these low points. We also use cross sections. So these are kind of like slices. If you were looking down the road and you were going to get down to kind of eye level, you can kind of looking through the road. We cut one of these every 50 feet along the road and at every driveway. So, when I say we've spent a lot of time looking at this stuff, I've looked at every single driveway, what the elevations are at the end of the driveway, to make sure that ideally we have the driveways within our work limits pitched back towards the road to keep the water in the roadway. And then we also look at kind of on the other side, just general tie-ins to make sure that we try to kind of maintain as much of the existing condition as possible. So we use that to use these to look at that as well. Yeah. Yeah, so in case the microphone wasn't picking up, the question was whether or not there was going to be some curbing at the edge of the roadway to delineate the pavement from the grass. And we are proposing curbing pretty much through the entire neighborhood, which is kind of represented here. I think the standard reveal we're using is a 6-inch reveal. There are some areas where curbing won't be used, and those will be in the areas where we're proposing to use those infiltration trenches that or the infiltration ditch that I talked about. In order for those to be effective, the water just kind of needs to sheet off the road and get into the ditch as soon as possible, so we can have as much travel through the ditch as possible to provide some treatment. But otherwise, the rest of the area will all have curbing. Water system improvements. Cole talked a little about this. The entire water system in the neighborhood is going to get replaced, and in doing so, we're gonna replace the water mains. We'll be providing new water service piping to the right of way, so replacing your current service from the main to the right of way, and we'll also be replacing all of the hydrants. Question? Okay. So this is just kind of a quick sample view here. The highlighted area just shows what the water line looks like on the plan. And that's a replaced water service there. And some things we have to consider when we're looking at the water main design is how far away we are from the sewer lines. The state has regulations horizontally and vertically for even when we cross under the sewer, we can't be touching pipes. We have to have so much separation in order to protect the water supply. So all that comes in as a factor. And gas lines, and we have to consider any existing utility that's in the ground. Part of this work, one thing we are trying to be aware of is where the water main is in proximity to the existing water main. So like here, the existing water main is dashed, the new one is solid. As Cole mentioned, the existing water main is asbestos. So when we start having to remove that pipe, it becomes a hazardous material, and there's a lot of effort and costs that are associated with pulling that out of the ground. So the goal is to try to abandon it in place as much as possible. As far as next steps and schedule, right now we're working on, as we mentioned before, we're just kind of working on getting the easements squared away for the drainage, and then whatever comments we get from tonight I'll use and start looking at the drawings again a little bit. As I think Paul mentioned, we were able to secure some funding from the state on the drinking water side, so we have an application to submit to the state in order to get that process going. And then all said and done, we're targeting a bidding, hopefully to get this thing out to bid and on the streets for contractors to start looking at, for the town to receive bids this fall. And the start of construction right now is, we're calling it to be determined. With a fall bid, there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not it's worth starting a job, starting to dig, and in the October timeframe. So once there's a contractor signed up, that type of conversation will be more detailed. But that'll be dependent a lot of what the contractor think they might be able to do, and not disturb too much of the neighborhood before we have to button it back up and get it cleaned up for wintertime. So I believe. Yeah, and just as a reminder, the project does have a website on the town's website. I think you can access it through the Public Works page. So feel free to visit that periodically for updates. Yeah. You mean once construction starts?
Yes,
Yeah, so the question was if there's a kind of projected time frame for the duration of construction. We haven't looked at that a lot yet. It's a pretty sizable project. It's a pretty large scope of work. There's a lot to do. Our initial thoughts, it's probably, I'd call it like a season and a half. So definitely like a full season of definitely hard digging, getting everything done, and then maybe, at least half a season on the other side of doing a lot of the cleanup work, maybe some final pipe work. It's a pretty large project. So definitely a season and a half, a season being April to late November, depending on how the weather turns, and paving plants and stuff like that. Was there a question? Same question? Okay. Yep.
Could you talk a little bit more about the responsibility of the access costs to what you're providing? So, an example is mine releases in the front of my yard, the pump is already under the ground, and then about 12 inches from the sidewalk, it shoots out. So, in that type of situation, what am I doing? How do I go about it? What is the cost for that? What's my responsibility?
Yeah, so I think for now, I think I would answer that as we haven't discussed that in detail yet with the town, as far as like policies and how to handle that to make sure everybody kind of treated the same and fairly. I will say on some previous projects that if there's a pipe literally hanging out right there at the edge of where we're digging, then it's likely that the contractor will just, might just plug it into the pipe. But that'll be looked at in more detail.
I'll jump in. So if there are details like that, and we look at your plans and we find it on your house, we can find your house on the plan at the end of this meeting. If you can show us where that is, we can move that drain service to where, as close it is. So people know, all right, I've already got a sump pump, I've already buried it. If you know where that is, plus or minus, just looking at the plans will help you interpret it. And then we'll mark up right on the plans, relocate that drain service to where it already is to make that go easier, if that helps.
Thanks, Cole. Yes?
I have two questions. One is, how much aging have you guys done in the neighborhood? Do you have a sense of what the static water level is right now and how that might change with these changes? Because we don't have water in our basement right now. And I'm just curious if you feel the static levels change in the neighborhood. And the second question is, are we going to be given the advance notice of water shutoffs? I assume that we are. We have to change our shutoff valve basically. Time for us to have water.
Yeah, so the first question was whether or not we have an idea of what the static level of the groundwater is throughout the neighborhood. We did complete a subsurface investigation program. So we went, I think it was, I don't remember when it was, probably last year when we initially started the project. So we did borings or probes, and when we did those, we were able to record what the groundwater was at the time when we did those. So we do have an idea of where there's higher groundwater versus lower groundwater.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you done it lately? Because we've had a much higher groundwater table right now. I do this at work at my job. So I know that it's much higher right now. Because we have a lot more water that's actually.
Yeah, we haven't done it. We haven't done it lately. Well, we do have a couple monitoring wells that I think we opened them up, where are we now? What is this, March? I think last fall, I think we went out and opened them as part of our stormwater evaluation to get an idea of what those levels were, and I think we have 3 of them through the neighborhood. So we were able to, if we feel we need to, we are able to go and kind of take some readings to see what's going on.
Yeah, I know since November it's been higher in general in the area, so it's.
Yeah. And then I think
Would you bore the highest point of water?
what's that?
Wouldn't you bore the highest point of water, like you talk about 100-year flood type scenario?
No, not necessarily. Usually when we do the borings, we kind of do them when we need to get them done in order to proceed, to proceed along with the project.
Between now and the middle
yeah, no, yeah.
So I'm thinking you want to build that high point.
Yeah, I mean, we have the monitoring wells out there, so if we want to, we can go look. And we
That's the
have.
greatest problem I think we deal with in the neighborhoods now is the saturation of the ground. And we're talking about using some pumps going to drainage system to get to knock that way there, but we're not taking the imperviousness of the water back out to the static that was sitting there all the time. It's
Right.
not going to move.
Well, yeah, so, you know, one of the goals of the project is to provide connections to the sump, for the sump pumps. When you pull some, you know, if the water from the sump pumps is being moved elsewhere, then that's eliminating discharges from the surface, which is then getting back into the ground. So that can help improving the drainage system, getting things moving so that it's getting away from the roadway and getting away from the yards and outletting out towards the rivers. That helps kind of take care of some of the water. You know, the goal of the project is not to reduce the groundwater in the neighborhood, is to, you know, provide, initially it started as a sump pump, you know, a sump pump removal program from the sewer systems, and then it's kind of, you know, evolved a little bit to do what we're doing now. When you install pipes in the ground, most of the pipes are bedded in stone, so it does provide a conduit for some water to move freely. Again, kind of move away from the ground and through the stone and out towards the lower end of the pipes. But we don't know how to gauge, or, you know, we're not looking to gauge what that's going to do to the groundwater levels in the neighborhood. It's a whole nother animal. Yes. I'm sorry, sir. Before you continue, I think you had a second question.
Yeah, just schedule-wise, we're going to need a formal plan to stop the water.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we don't. You know, we're kind of getting into some construction questions, so that's a little further down the road. But yeah, so generally, you know, once we're into construction and there's going to be a water shutdown, there's definitely, the minimum is usually like a 48-hour notice that the water is going to be shut down. So yeah, we don't, especially if it's a long duration, you know, if it's going to be an all day thing, you definitely get notified that it's gonna happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
We've lived in the same house for 50 years now, and this is definitely the worst year having water infiltration into our cellar. It's been 5 times in the last 4 months, and I contend that it's partly the result of the 3 condos that are built behind my place at 51, that they've obviously removed some vegetation, and there's more water going into that swamp, because I've seen the levels as high as they've ever been. Is there any plan to do some maintenance along that brook? Because there's a lot of stuff preventing the flow of that out, and when the water goes under the railroad area, it's a relatively small opening there, and I don't think anything can probably be done to fix that.
Yeah, so you're referring to this
Right,
area up
that's
in here.
correct, yeah.
So there's no plan to go in here and maintain this area at all. Part of what we've done is right now there's two outfalls. Actually, I wanted to go back. Apologize for a second here. Yeah, so right now there's 2 existing outfalls here. There's one here and there's one here that discharge some water to that area. What we've proposed to do is eliminate these 2 pipes and bring all the water for the neighborhood to these 3 locations here, so they discharge to the river. It's not addressing anything on the other side, you know, coming from the other side, but at least it's reducing water from the neighborhood into that wetland.
The Anderson property at 49 and ours at 51 are the low points in that whole development, because when it rains and the leaves plug up the drain that's existing there that was put in probably 30 years ago, and we did approve that because they had to dig a good-sized ditch to go between our property, we get, you know, 12 to 14 inches of water built up on the road right against that curb. So there's got to be something considered if you're not providing sump access to that side of the development.
Yeah, so we'll be regrading this, and like, so right now, some of this I believe, if I remember the kind of the topography of the way the flow of the water goes, there's a high point somewhere around here. And a lot of this water kind of works, if it ends up down here, it goes from here, and it ends up down in here, and it ends up down in here. And all this water, there's another grade break kind of here in the neighborhood. And everything from here goes this way. So we're taking essentially everything. If I were to circle this, we're taking that section of the neighborhood that now probably trickles its way to here, and we're bringing it out to the other side of the neighborhood. So when I was out there, I saw what you guys have in your backyards, and these pipes here are really shallow. They're really hard to, they were hard for us to even get a new pipe out there to work because of how shallow the water is and how deep we need it to be. So that's when I started looking at alternatives to try to push everything out the other side of the neighborhood.
Does that mean you're gonna remove those 2 pipes?
So we're gonna either cut the pipes back a little bit so that they don't stick out of the ground anymore, and block them. We'll block them on the roadside, and we'll plug them on either side, and then most of the pipe will stay in the ground.
You're gonna block them off so that the water doesn't run through them.
Correct. We will work with the homeowners on either side of those pipes just to make sure that there's no like basement drain connections or sump pump connections that might be into those pipes, because when we block the pipes, we don't want to be creating a problem that has to be addressed. Mm-hmm.
Right next to the curb. And between his property and ours, there's a pipe.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're gonna block that pipe off, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And right now, we have a sump pump.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband ran some PVC piping down to the brook.
Mhm.
So what drains out of our cellar is this brook.
Yep.
Is that going to be a problem?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the plan right now would be to, yeah, the intent is for your configuration to stay as is. That should be, if it's not connected to that pipe and has its own separate pipe, we shouldn't be negatively impacting your sump pump configuration.
I will say that I'm really certain that if you block that off, the reason why we asked the town to put that in the first place was because we had a major ravine being created by that water running out. Now, it remains to be seen if this other system you're planning to put in will eliminate some of that. I sort of doubt it. I think the water that's going to be coming down on the roadway will flow over.
We can look at it afterwards on the drawings if you'd like. The curbing will prevent the water from going down.
Yeah, I guess if we have specific questions about your property, that's the intent of this meeting, is we can address those kind of individually. So these are more general questions. I guess the thought for this part was general questions about the project, and then if you have specific questions about your property and how it will be affected, it'd probably be best to be doing that one-on-one. We can actually look at the plans and have a more meaningful discussion, and then, anyone who's watching remotely will, so I guess I'm just throwing that out there.
The whole other side of the property you're talking about, not in the law. You're not in the law. We have 45 inches of water in the basement. Every month we've had storms.
Well, the one thing I would say is, when you look at, I just click back, Dan, just click back one, to the existing drainage system, right? So that's the existing system out there to control the drainage. All right, click it again. this is what we're proposing. So, it's a vast improvement to what's there. There's no guarantees in life. But we're reasonably confident. We've been doing this for a long time. We're reasonably confident that the infrastructure will improve existing problems. And then we'll work with you individually. If you have that individual pipe, your sump pump is right where it ought to be. And then those existing pipes there, we can work with you. We can work with you on what you want done with those. There's a little bit, if we're working on private property, we got to be careful. We'll probably ask you to sign something similar to the other easement that gives us permission, but, we're willing to work with you if there's changes to that existing infrastructure that needs to occur to abandon it in a way that is appropriate and would make it feel better. So I don't know if that helps at all, but.
Confident that the rainfall that falls on the property now, or when this inflow system will be done, will handle that amount of work.
We design, there's, with everything with engineering, right, there's always a balance between, we could put in huge pipes to manage a 100-year storm. So depending on the size of the infrastructure, there's always a balance, but we do size it for the 10-year storm, I think.
At least.
Yeah, at least a 10-year storm, which I think, how many inches of rain is that in?
I think it's close to 3.
Yeah, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches, it's a pretty intense rainstorm. So, we have a hydrologic model that we use to model, okay, if you get 3 or 4 inches of rain, we want to make sure that the drainage system captures it. We've been having more, more and more frequent, and I think it's been a little weird. I have a skating rink in my yard. The past couple of winters have been terrible for my, my backyard skating rink. We got out on it for 2 weeks, I think. So I hope next year's better. So I think things are a little wetter now than they have been. Things didn't freeze as much as they have in the past. So, but I think I guess we're reasonably confident looking at the improvements that we're proposing, it should help. It can't hurt. I guess I'll put it that way.
Okay, I got multiple questions for you.
I think before you start, sir, I think the gentleman in the jacket had a question.
I had a question. I'm 32, but I get water even when it hasn't been raining. I blow through a sump pump a year. I've been there for 29 years. And as you ask any of my neighbors, my sump pump goes off religiously every 3 minutes. And when you get even more of a down, or it makes it even worse but I literally go through one cast metal one a year, and I've also had the draining ditch done, and the industrial sump pump and all of that. Where would that water be coming from? Why would it do it? I'm actually on the cul-de-sac. I'm not even on the water side.
So 32, you're up in,
32, I'm right on the cul-de-sac, yeah.
you're right here.
Yeah, my house backs up against the winch.
Could just be some high groundwater.
I mean, even it could be like a 90-degree week. There might be maybe two weeks out of the whole year, but that's some pump. That's nothing other than that. Pumping.
This is true of the whole neighborhood, as we all know, right? We all have some pumps, they all going off middle of summer, no matter what. In your boring, did you find a lot of clay in the ground? In other words, you're going to be adding these swales that water is supposed to drain off the road and into the ground, but really it's not going to go anywhere because there's so much clay in this ground. Am I not correct? Every time you dig up, I dig a hole in my yard, I'm going to find clay and bricks because the water sits on top, doesn't filter through.
So
Have you determined that in your boring of the neighborhood?
One of the things, I used to do geotech back in a previous life before I was doing water and wastewater. You do the best you can with the limited information that you have. That's why we put in the monitoring wells and we measure the water level. The one up in the upper corner, that flows all the time. The groundwater level is above the road the majority of the time. So we're planning to put an under drain in up there to help take some of that water away. So when we do the borings, I think we did 8 borings. You can't put a hole everywhere, so we distribute the borings as best we can around the neighborhood. 4 of those borings we put in wells so that we could monitor the groundwater over a period of time, over different seasons, to try to get a sense for, okay, how much does it vary during different times of the year? Try to get the high and try to get the low, and design around those parameters. But once again, it's, we can't it's just cost prohibitive. I mean, we would spend $500,000 putting in a well in every single lot. So we, try to make a reasonable sample, take measurements, and...
Okay. I do like what I see as far as all the red lines here and the new system. Where it says existing drain, where that pipe drains into the little river. Every storm, the river comes up and covers that pipe. So that's not going to allow water to really drain out of there when there's a storm. Isn't it going to be, it's going to struggle to get water out of that pipe.
There are times that we call that a tailwater effect, like in the model.
Yeah.
The water will still go. It will still come out the pipe.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.